Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. For this month's guest, I am so happy to welcome on Colin Harris once again. Colin is an amazing energy healer, an Akashic Records reader. He is super gifted. He's a clairsentient, an empath, and so much more. And this month together, we are going to be talking about his experience as a manifestor type in human design. So all of you will know I have really been lit by the spark and passion for human design, and it has been an amazing experience for myself learning to decondition and find my way back to my authentic design. And I have been so taken by Colin's experience. I myself am just your everyday generator type, but Colin is a manifestor, not just any manifestor. He is a 6-2 emotional manifestor. He has split definition, the left angle cross of alignment, a really, really special chart. And in getting to know him personally, I have seen that his whole life is shaped by being a manifestor. And if you don't know much about what it means to be a manifestor, really, I like to call the manifestor type in human design. We all have a type. These are our kings and queens. Traditionally in society, they held positions of authority, and they are here to initiate and to spark others into action. They are here to get things started, and they have what some people in human design call a closed and repelling aura, which is a little bit strong language, but it means that their energy is solid, which means that they are felt and experienced by others. They're not able to sort of hide in the background as some of the other types can. They have a strong presence in this world. And from the moment I first met Colin, I felt and was impacted by his strong presence. So Colin, welcome. Welcome back to the channel.
Hi, everybody.
So glad to have you here. And, I guess from the very beginning, my first question for you is when did you find out that you were a manifestor type? When did you discover your human design?
So I actually did human design a long time ago, but it was just a random encounter on the internet, and I didn't really take it seriously. I would say that I started taking it more seriously in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Where I really researched what it was to be a manifestor, when I really saw, that the way I interact with the world is different. And I wanted to know myself, so I started to look into things to know myself better. How could I operate in life with the most amount of flow?
Flow is a key word for a manifestor, isn't it? So do you remember what first stood out to you? When you discovered the whole information set about what it means to be a manifestor, do you remember what impacted you the most in terms of your learning?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Number one, I would say that to inform people, and not just inform people, but that I also like to be informed.
Mm-hmm.
That was really impactful. The 6-2, the 2 part of my chart was something that I wasn't aware of before, and how much rest I really need. And then that's okay for my rest, is to take that. And then the third thing about my chart that I learned was, being emotional, and not, honestly, it actually saved me a ton of money to not, to follow my emotional authority.
That's when I have emotional authority too. And it has saved me so much money. That's a topic we should talk about in the future. Colin, would you be okay with me sharing a copy of your chart with the birth information removed for our audience to be able to see, so they can sort of see your profile?
Of course.
Yeah, so they can kind of study you, because you're an amazing case study. And, you know, you mentioned informing. And for those who might just be learning, this is a core part of being a manifestor. So as a manifestor, your strategy is to inform. So this is literally like, according to the designer of Human Design, this is how you're meant to move through the world. It is literally sort of like being an announcer and telling people, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going here. And this is totally different than the other types. And sometimes at first, a manifestor can think they need to ask for permission, because I think part of the experience, and you'll have to tell me if this has been true for you, but part of the experience of a manifestor can be that your words and actions have a very strong impact on those around you. And that doesn't always probably feel fair. But because manifestors have that strong presence in their aura, what is sometimes called, right, the closed and repelling aura, their energy, it touches those around them. And so they sort of need to tell people, hey, I'm going to be going over here, or I'm going to be doing this, so that others can prepare for sort of the impact of that manifestor. And I wonder, like, if you could talk a little bit more about informing, like, itself, and sort of how you felt. Like, were you offended, I guess, like when you first found out like that you had to inform other people about what you were doing and where you were going?
Yes. So when I first learned about informing, it kind of frustrated me a little bit, because I just like, well, they should just know, you know, and that's a little bit toxic. And I wasn't aware, like, of the impact that I had. And I'm so used to hearing no all the time in my life. And, you know, as I've gotten older and I understand human design more, hearing no is okay now. And, you know, informing people has really changed my relationships a lot, and for the better. You know, in romantic relationships, like, this is what I want, and I state what I want. This is what I'm going to do. You know, are you going to come with me or not? But if we look at, like, my friends, I'll have an idea. Like, oh, I want to go to play, like, we have this thing called Rec Room. This is just a couple weeks ago. And my job, I just informed everybody that I wanted to come. I'm going to be here on this date. Please inform me the day before if you are going to come or not. And what's interesting is, if I look at my past, I've done this actually a lot. I just was unconscious of it. And I used to get offended if people, or I'd be sad if people said no, versus now, I'm much more aware that, hey, I just say, this is what I'm going to do. If you would like to come, I would love to have you there. And when I let go of that expectation that everybody is going to be there, the flow that comes, and it's always absolutely perfect. So that really, really, really makes me happy. This is the thing I'm going to do. I would love you to come, you know, and by me informing more, it actually has freed up a lot of space in my life, because when somebody says no now, I actually feel free. You know, I think about a romantic relationship, like, this is what I want. And they said no. As soon as I had that conversation, I informed what I wanted, and they said no. I don't feel comfortable with that. I actually feel free, because now I get to, like, go create something new that I actually want.
That word create is so important for you. The manifestors are like 10% of the population. And there was this period in time a couple years ago where, like, everyone was taught to manifest. You know, it's like, here's how you manifest, abracadabra, do this, just visualize. The manifestors are the real creators in human design. And the thing is, like, to create beautiful things in this world, right, you need the support and assistance of people who are on board. And one of the most important things for you is identify who's on board with your intentions, right? But like, I can only imagine as a manifestor, like a difficult part of that is like some people, even a lot of people, like are not going to be on board. And in order for you to go where you're going, right? Because your mission is to initiate, it's not to build. Generators like myself are actually the builders. So you sort of like need the input of generators to build with you. And generators are here to like whistle while you work, do. So what you want, like as a manifestor, right, is a happy generator. Like you want to share your vision or like what you're going to do. And you want the generator who's like, yeah. Like I'm going with you. I want to do that activity with you. I want to create that romance with you. But I know like as a highly sensitive person, it can be hard, like when people are not on board. So like having that, you know, that closed aura, like where some people in human design, they call it like getting out of the way, right? Like you share like, hey, I'm going here, like I'm doing this, are you with me? And people are like, you know, that's like the generator. No, no. Like, I mean, how does that impact you? Like, how does that feel?
Like I said, you know, in the past, I really took offense to it because when I go to create something, you know, I have such a passion for it. I can see such a clear direction. And so when I inform somebody and they say no, in the past, I took that as like, oh no, it's like, well, they don't see the same, they are not sharing the vision, and just to honor that and to make them feel, just let them really decide has been a like massive turning point in my life. And it also helps, I'm kind of going back a little bit, but informing about what I'm feeling and my emotions. There's been so many times where I'll inform somebody of what I'm feeling. Oh, like I feel this, and they're like, I had no idea. So
yes. Oh my gosh. I don't want to interrupt you.
Enough information.
But I have to say this, like, I'm so sorry. I'm just my generator excitement. Like, manifestors need to know that because their aura is closed, their inner world is completely private and secret. And this is totally different than the other types. Like, it is damn near impossible to read a manifestor. And I am a professional psychic, and I work with like a lot of manifestors. You are blessed to be able to keep, you know, the secrets of the state inside of you, right? Like that's like part of being a manifestor. But right, like if you don't tell people how you feel or like what's really going on like within you, like they actually won't know. And I think like for you as a manifestor type who is really gifted, you're used to being able to sense the inner worlds of other people. And you probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably had the assumption that other people could sense the inner worlds of you as well. And that they just knew.
Definitely.
So, tell me more.
I assumed that everybody could read me like I can read everybody else. And it wasn't until I learned to inform, and specifically to actually inform people what I'm feeling and thinking, that my life started to develop a much more harmonious flow. And it didn't always go good, right? Let's say it's a romantic relationship. Like, I feel very connected to you. I feel this, I feel that. And it felt so scary to inform people of my inner world. But again, once I started to inform, the amount of, oh, I had no idea you were feeling that. And I'm very connected to a lot of really spiritually gifted people who are great at reading people and energy. And I'm not saying that people can never read me, but those deep, really real feelings I've noticed people can't. Sometimes they can guess, but they can't really feel, or they might feel an emotion, but they don't understand the depth of the emotion until I use my throat and I explain it.
And that's your power as a manifestor. So what it really means, like in a technical sense, to be a manifestor, is it means that you have a motor center connected to the throat center, like on the body graph of your chart. And I mentioned before the word like abracadabra. And that really is the case, like for a manifestor, in the sense of like your whole life is shaped by what you speak into being. And that throat center becomes the hallmark of your life. But I wonder if, like, for you, what do you feel in terms of your power connected to your voice? Like, do you feel, because like for me, like when you speak, like I feel a power. Like, do you feel like you're do you feel a power flowing through you when you speak? Like, have you seen, I guess, like the impact of your words on other people in a way that has surprised you?
Definitely. So before I learned what a manifestor was, like I couldn't understand why, let's say me and the boys are like, you know, kind of picking on each other a little bit, why it always seemed like my words I could say something that was less offensive, but somehow it cut people deeper. I also wasn't aware that, you know, when I really started sharing my thoughts and feelings with people, that when I displayed like, oh, like I'm really disappointed, it made me feel really shitty when you did X, Y, Z, that it really hit people harder, because people can tell me that stuff and it doesn't hit me, but I noticed, and I have to push through because I do have to use my voice and tell people what I'm thinking and feeling, but the level of impact, now that I'm aware of what a manifestor is, and I have to choose my words carefully, but, you know, I really see it playing out. And actually in my life, like looking back, it makes a lot more sense to me now. I understand it better. That like, oh, when I said that thing, like that hit somebody a little harder than if somebody else said the same thing, because there's like a force behind it. And sometimes I feel the force, what I wasn't aware of is like, there's sometimes when let's say doing a reading or something, I can feel there's this power behind it. But what I wasn't aware of is that I could just be having a casual conversation. And I don't necessarily feel the force coming through, but the other person feels this immense force coming through.
Well, right, because as a manifestor, your mission and purpose is to basically inspire others into action and to impact other people deeply. And I think what I imagine could be a hard thing about a manifestor is you're here to impact that person and to move them, but you don't necessarily have control over how they're moved. So the initial impact, right, of the words on another person could be a little unsettling to you. But if your purpose is, right, get that person to change their life, do you know what I mean? Get them to make dramatic, positive change. Sometimes at first, right, that could, well, like, I guess the response you could see from that person could be that they're a little upset. Maybe they didn't want to be moved into change in that moment, but their soul needed it. And so I just feel like as a manifestor, you've got to sort of have that special trust in the divine to kind of move you. Do you know what I mean? And move your words. And like you said, you kind of have to be, you know, you have to be careful in what you say, but you also have to say what you need to say. And I guess a question I have for you is like, what happens when you don't do that? Do you know what I mean? Like when you hold back, like when you feel that throat energy, have you had experiences where like you feel that throat energy and like there's something to express, but you don't?
Yes. So I notice it as like, sometimes there's like it's not quite time yet, but what starts to happen is I get like frustrated and angry because things aren't like going in a certain way. And so I get all, you know, and then I start self-doubting. It actually comes with a cascade of things within my being. And I think about specifically like romantic relationships is the best example I can give. And I start to feel, like, I'll start to feel like, oh, something's not right, etc., etc. And if I don't speak it, I start to shut down massively. And this doesn't just apply to manifestors, but me specifically, I feel stuck. I feel so stuck. And sometimes you have that difficult, or I have that difficult conversation. And what's wild is even if it's a no, there's one specific instance I can think of, and it was a no. But afterwards, I had that conversation. I felt so free. My energy felt free. And that's a real key is now when I start to feel stuck, I know that I need to speak more.
Mm-hmm.
When I start to get frustrated or angry, I have to speak more.
So the creator of Human Design says the not self theme for a manifestor is anger. And you mentioned that word like a couple times, which is sort of wild to me as a generator type. Like for me, it's frustration. But to hear you say like when you have something to say, but you don't let yourself, you actually feel angry. That's so interesting to me. Like, do you feel angry because it's like this world is a place where I cannot speak my truth? Or like, what is the source of the anger? Like when you're feeling that anger, what could you speak a little bit more to like how that anger feels to you?
So anger for me, because of what I've gone through my life, it usually comes more towards myself, actually.
Okay.
Or sometimes it can show up towards other people. Like if I'm not informed, I get angry. Or I use the word frustrated because anger, because I meditate all the time and stuff, like the word anger feels really intense. It takes a lot for me to get really angry, but frustration and feeling stuck and then angry at myself. That is where, like, angry that things aren't flowing. So sometimes, a lot of times, it's not directed, like, at a person. It's just, I start to get this angry energy just in life in general. And then as soon as I have a conversation, or, like, when it comes to anger, like, let's say I'm not telling somebody how I'm thinking and feeling, and it's really important, and I need, like, a response from them, I'll go to work, and I'll be shorter with people. Even somebody as loving as my sister, and I'll catch myself, and that's kind of how anger shows up in my life. It's a lot of anger at myself, and then I get short, and like little things kind of set me off that normally wouldn't.
And then the reverse, they say, right? The creator of Human Design says like the signature for a manifestor is peace, and you kind of like alluded to that, right? Like that even like if you get a no response, because fundamentally like you're usually going to get a response from almost every type, right? When you communicate something, like you kind of feel like that general sense of peace, like I said what I need to say. And would you say that's fair, like that informing others brings peace?
So I don't notice that peace. I notice it a lot when I've been holding back because there's such a drastic difference in my emotional state. But even when I get a no, it feels peaceful to me. Like if you have a manifestor in your life and they've asked you something and you're avoiding, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, I promise you that just hearing the response, you'll feel peaceful. It's so wild. I could, go through a breakup, but there's this inner peace that comes with just knowing, and that knowing that I have to shift my energy to something new, right? Or let's say I really want a job, and just hearing no, or going out with friends, just hearing no from somebody, it's like, oh, okay, like now I don't have to. It's like I'm not putting energy into that spot anymore. It's not a waste of energy, right? Because somebody just said no. So I feel like then I can take that energy, I can take that river, and I can move it to a different area. All my focus can shift. And that peace that comes from just hearing a response is everything to me. Even if that would normally hurt somebody, and I can still be hurt, but there's the undertone of peace that I get.
That is so helpful for me to hear in this moment. Like, I think that's so surprising. It will be surprising to some of the other types. I think of like all the manifestor clients I have, and I feel so blessed by all of them. Their presence is so supportive to me. But when a manifestor asks me to do something, and maybe they want to have a call at a certain time and I can't, or they want me to use my gifts in a way I'm not ready to, I can tend to like really avoid them. Do you know what I mean? Like, if the answer is no or not right now, because I'm afraid of hurting them. And so like, to hear you say as a manifestor that like just getting a response like generally brings peace no matter what it is, I think that's really reassuring. It's okay. I know this might be a little hard for you to hear, but like just informing you, it is normal for other types to fear the manifestor. Like, a healthy amount of fear towards a manifestor is actually common. And so like, people will be a little bit afraid of you. They'll be like a little bit afraid like to say no to you. And I'm imagining like your experience, right? Like, you're trying to pull people together and like create like a fun night out or something, and people are just like not getting back to you. Like, that would suck. Do you know what I mean? But it's because they would be afraid of the power of your impact. Do you know what I mean? So I think like the world needs to hear inform the manifestors, because I think that like not everyone realizes that that's a two-way street. So like, yes, we all feel better when the manifestor informs us, and that's extremely important. Like, when I think of manifestors, I think of like the Queen of England, like outside on her balcony, like talking to the crowd below her and saying like, here's what we're going to be doing for society. And like, that helps the populace. Like, we need to know like, where's the country going, right? And so we have a long history of that. But also like, I think all the generators, the projectors, the reflectors of the world, we need to remember to speak to the manifestors and let them know, where we're at with stuff too. Because we forget that you guys have feelings, like, and vulnerabilities, because the power within you is so strong,
And I will say that I do understand. That is something. If there's something that everybody else listening can understand, is it is a two-way street. Just as much as you want a manifestor to inform, we love to be informed. I would rather be over-informed, because it allows me to figure out like how much water to put on this plant, And the other thing is like, I do understand having a quote like healthy fear of manifestors. I've done a lot of healing work on myself. I meditate. I do a lot of things. Going into my shadows and stuff. But I understand that when I was 24 or 22, and I wasn't as self-aware as I am now, how somebody telling me no, I didn't always act in the healthiest ways. But even if in the moment I was really hurt, later on I always felt better, and I always felt more peace, even if somebody told me something hurtful. Now, again, manifestors are people too, and I'm coming from a version of me that does a lot of work now, but informing it will help the manifestor massively, even if they don't always react in the best way.
Listening to you, it's just, I'm coming into like a more of an embodied awareness of just the importance of honest communication in society in general at this moment, and the tremendous healing impact of all of that. But I'm also thinking kind of a funny thing that might be of interest to the audience, which is like just the tremendous like impact of the power of the words of the manifestor are so much so that like Colin and I have been real good friends for about like 5 years now. And I actually had to, and like I shared recently that like in a video that my North Node, like in Human Design, it has to do with the gate of boundaries, becoming a boundary master. I had to actually set boundaries with Colin, like that I could only speak to him like before 10 o'clock in the morning and like all this stuff, because the things he would say would have such an energetic impact on me that like if I would talk to him like in the evening, I couldn't sleep. Like I could not like calm my energy because his energy was like, I don't know how to describe that, but it just like was like a lightning bolt to me. Like even when he wasn't trying, or like even when he was in a calm energy. So we've had several funny moments where I've been like, Colin, calm your energy, like calm your energy. Because there's just such a power. There's just such a power that runs through you. And so I think, oh, go ahead.
This is a really good example of, you know, you might think that telling me, oh, I can't talk to you before 10 a.m. or noon because it affects you in this way, could maybe hurt me, because then you might think, oh, Colin doesn't think that I enjoy talking to him, or X, Y, Z. But in reality, all it did was free up more of my energy. And so, oh, perfect. Like, talk to my before 10 a.m. Done. And, you know, it wasn't even like a thing to me. Versus you could have experienced that. I mean, I'll let you share how that felt to you. But to me, that's just like, oh, perfect. Like, thank you for informing me. I will adjust how I interact with you.
Yeah, I mean, like right now it's like 10 a.m., you know? And so like this is really good for me. But yeah, I probably spent like 6 weeks. So this was like a couple years ago when I first told him like, I don't think like I can hang out with you in the evenings and stuff. I probably spent like 6 weeks stressing over it. I was like, oh my God, like, how can I tell him? And I like did all these like experiments and observations to be like, are his words really impacting me? Like, how is this impacting me? Is this worth communicating? Is this going to hurt him? Like all this stuff. And then like, as soon as I just told him and we just adapted like our schedule, things were so much better, I think, for both of us. So yeah, inform the manifestors in your life, like for positive impact, and encourage them to inform you too. I think it's like simple advice to come from the interview today, but it probably is like the most impactful thing. Would you say that, Colin? Like in terms of your human design, has learning to inform been the most impactful thing, or is there something else like in your chart that's been more impactful for you?
I mean, human design there's a lot of little things. Informing people, I would actually say that, you know, learning that I have a closed and repelling aura, learning something that happened to me is I could never understand. I don't get like a lot of people that are, like I notice other people don't like them, they're neutral, or they really like them. I don't get so much as the neutral. I get people really like me or people don't like me. There's no, and sometimes I don't even have to say anything. I could just walk into a room and a bunch of people just instantly like me, and some people want nothing to do with me and they want to run away from me, and sometimes it can be very, very challenging for me because I didn't even do anything. Or I could be talking to somebody and just about a story, or just saying like a sentence, and somehow that story, you know, triggers somebody, and I didn't even try. I wasn't trying to push them. Maybe I just asked them the perfect question, and the response is, you know, and to learn to not take that stuff personally. Now, obviously, if I'm I have to be very self-aware of what I'm saying, because you know, if you just take away human design, just people in general, you can say hurtful things and stuff like that. But what was wild to me is realizing I didn't say anything that would hurt that person. Sometimes I could just ask a simple question, and that's enough just to send somebody into attack mode, and to not take that stuff personally.
Yeah, to me, like I experience your energy as completely solid, like a brick wall. And that's a felt energy presence. And that can be good, but it also, you have to be prepared to experience that. And fundamentally, I think as a manifestor, you will move people into action. And there are just people who are stagnant and they don't want to be moved. Do you know what I mean? And they may experience that initial impact negatively, but you're still fulfilling your purpose in their life. But yeah, that's who you're meant to be. I think we're all born with the design we're meant to have. But a lot of people tell me as a generator, like people will tell me sometimes like I can go like radar invisible, like they don't feel me at all. Like I can just like drift into the background. And like for you, that probably never will be the case. People will see you, people will experience you, people will have a response to you. I think that's part of your generator experience. It reminds me of the quote, like, with great power comes great responsibility. I think like you've walked the path wonderfully, right? Like you do a lot to maintain and improve your energy and spirituality. And so I think that you're expressing that responsibility well. And I think it'll just increase more and more, like with time, like in terms of your ability to be able to manage your power well. But it certainly is an interesting journey. I continue to be fascinated by all the different types, but especially the manifestor type. And so sort of in closing, I wonder, like, there's so much more that we could and maybe will discuss about being a manifestor. But I think generally, like, what advice would you have for someone who maybe is a manifestor themselves and maybe they're starting to understand their manifestor experience?
That's such a good question. I would say, don't take things personally, or as personally, as necessarily the other types, because there's always layers. So don't always take things so personally. That would be number one. Number two would be to realize that just your aura has power. Number three would be, this is my personal opinion, but more than any other type, because of your immense power and great responsibility, you need to really work on yourself. Really, really, truly go in and feel, because unlike some of the other types, when you speak, and if you're speaking from a wounded place, you can really send people in a direction that isn't necessarily good. So I think it's very, very important for you to focus on yourself.
I love what you said about, like, don't take things personally and sort of work on self-development. Because I'm thinking of just every manifestor that I know personally, and I understand that if they are to follow that advice, their life will change positively, dramatically positively. So neither of those things are necessarily easy, but I think for a manifestor, the more that you can release, like taking things personally, the more that you can improve yourself, the better and better your life will be. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Colin, it's been amazing to have you on the channel today. You're a storehouse for wisdom. This has been fascinating to hear about your manifestor experience. And I imagine that some people today who are listening, like they might be drawn to you. I could definitely imagine that they might be. So if someone is out there and they're listening and they want to experience your energy or they want to learn from you as a manifestor, is there a way that they can connect with you?
Yeah, there's a couple ways. First, I do Akashic record reading and I do energy healing. And those both, for manifestors and non-manifestors, I've noticed my specialty is really helping people get unstuck in their life. So if you're feeling stuck. And the third way is I teach meditation. We run 45-day programs, and it's a 45-day challenge to help people learn how to meditate. And that's good for everybody also. So those are three ways that you can connect with me or learn from me if that is what you'd like.
Okay, so in the description below, I will link information about Colin's Akashic record readings, his energy healings. My life has been changed by Colin. I've been so positively impacted by his presence. And I just want to say thank you, Colin. Thank you for being on the channel today. Thank you for bringing your presence here to the planet and impacting others powerfully. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Of course, I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to be in your life, and you've also impacted me, teaching me about human design, so I'm so grateful for that.
Yay! Well, we all love human design, and Colin and I are both thankful for you out there for listening today. Thank you for being a part of the channel, and come back soon to discover more about human design. Have a great day.